Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union, the ACRU Action Fund, and the Committee to Support and Defend, the nation's constitutional conservative veterans organization. And speaking of it's the Committee to Support and Defend, supportanddefend.org. I'll be heading up to Wisconsin next week, New Berlin, Wisconsin, and Waukesha County to be at Veterans for VFW Post 5716, VFW Post 5716 on Saturday, the 30th of May. We're going to have a Veterans Morning Muster just to get together, tell a lot of old war stories and things of this nature, and talk about continuing to support and defend the Constitution, the oath that we took, and what we could do as veterans to get engaged and get involved in the electoral process. And as well, at the end of July, if you're down in the southeast Georgia coastline area, Savannah to Brunswick, even down to Jacksonville, we'll be heading down there to do a veterans motorcycle ride in support of the Golden Isles Veterans Village, the Golden Isles Veterans Village in Brunswick, Georgia. That'll be, if I'm correct, the Saturday, the 25th of July. So mark that on your calendar. Next week, Saturday, the 30th of May, I'll be in New Berlin, Wisconsin, Waukesha County at VFW Post 5716. And then the end of July, on the 25th of July, we'll have a motorcycle ride to support the Golden Isles Veterans Village down in Brunswick, Georgia. I look forward to seeing you there up in Wisconsin and also down in Georgia. And please, again, go to supportanddefend.org, sign up to get our newsletter, and also to keep in touch and stay abreast of where the old colonel might show up. Now, speaking of where we might show up, I think it's important as we head into this Memorial Day weekend, and this has really been a focus for me because I think we're kind of losing our sight on what is important about this incredible weekend. And really, truthfully, it should be every day that we remember the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for this great nation, for our liberties, our rights, and our freedoms. But for whatever reason, Memorial Day has become another commercialized holiday. When people come up to me and they say, "Hey, Colonel, happy Memorial Day," I look at them and say, there's nothing happy about this day. There's nothing happy about this weekend. It is about honor, honoring Memorial Day, honoring those men and women who made that sacrifice for each and every one of us. You know, lots of times we say that this is the beginning of summer. I get it. I understand the opening of swimming pools and barbecues. And of course, we have baseball games and things of this nature. And NBA playoffs are going on, NHL playoffs are going on, but that's not what it's about. See, the real heroes here in the United States of America they don't slide around on ice and shooting a puck. They don't throw a basketball. They don't shoot a basketball. They don't catch a ball. They don't hit a ball. What they do is they protect us. They take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that they will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. They take that obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, and they say, "So help me God." We have a saying in the military that all gave some. Every single one of us that wore the uniform, we raised our right hand. For me, it was 31 July 1982 at the University of Tennessee, but some gave all. So I want you to think about that saying, some gave all. You know, when you look at the veteran population of the United States of America, it really is, I think, less than 1.5%, maybe even less than that. And of course, those who served 20 plus years, really a small number. But when you go out to those places that we call the Gardens of Stone, and you walk those hallowed sacred grounds, the grounds like Marietta National Cemetery, where my father is buried, United States Army Corporal, World War II, Herman West Sr., or my father in law, Master Sergeant, United States Army, Ronald Keith Graham, 2 combat tours of duty in Vietnam, 23rd Division of Marical. When you walk and you see those names, when you look at those simple marble headstones that has a name, maybe has their religious affiliation, tells you what branch of service they were in, tell you when they were born, when they passed away from this life. It tells you their rank. Just something simple. When you stand there and you look and read those names, that's what we should share with our little boys and little girls, our sons and daughters, our grandsons and granddaughters, our nieces and nephews, maybe our little cousins. Before we take them to the swimming pool or before we grill a hot dog or a hamburger for them, or, if you're really going to get ritzy, chicken and steak and pork chops. But they need to understand the succulent meat that they will bite into, who made it possible for them to be here in this great land of freedom. And maybe, just maybe, some of these older kids that are still someone's child that are going around saying that socialism is a great thing and Marxism is a great thing and America is a horrible country. Maybe we should take them to a national cemetery and show them some of those people who, very close to their age, made a decision to protect their rights, freedoms, and liberties, to speak out against the country that they took an oath to support and defend. A country unlike any other, where our rights do come from the Judeo Christian faith heritage God, where our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Guardians, they don't take an oath to a commander in chief. They don't take an oath to a person. They don't take an oath to a political party. They take an oath to that which embodies us as the American people, the Constitution of the United States of America, our rule of law. I wish we had more of that caliber of men and women that are in Washington, D.C., or maybe some of the other places of elected officials. Men and women who have been willing to lay down their lives for the oath that they took, instead of, well, self promoting or the promotion of ideological agendas and ideological rights, which are the antithesis of who we are as these great United States of America, in complete opposition to our rule of law. See, when I think about this time, when we should be saying honor Memorial Day, I think about all of these years. We're coming up on our 250th year of independence. But even before there was an America, even before there was an Army, a Navy, Marine Corps, and of course the Air Force came a lot later, like 1948. But even before we had services, guess what we had? We had men who took a battlefield. On April the 19th of 1775, before all of those things came about, there were men that understood what it meant to be free and the desire to have freedom and liberty and individual rights. Men who understood that as long as they stood with their musket in hand, as long as they were armed, they had the right to be citizens. They had a right to be free. But if they were disarmed, they would be subjects. 77 of those men stood on a battleground called Lexington Green in Lexington, Massachusetts on April the 19th of 1775. They were the militia, which is why we have a Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia. Regulated does not mean the ATF, it means trained, a well-trained militia. Being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's why 77 men, led by Captain John Parker, took that field in front of a British regiment of nearly 1,000. And when they were challenged and told to put down their weapons, to depart the field, they said no. And on that day, the shot was fired that was heard around the world. 77 men, sons of liberty, the militia, took on the greatest military power that the world knew at that time. And so, just for us to honor and remember this incredible long legacy, I want to read you the names of the very first 8 who fell on that battlefield at Lexington Green. Ensign Robert Monroe, the highest ranking man who died on April the 19th, was Ensign Robert Monroe. He was 63 years of age when he was killed by enemy fire. Robert served as an ensign, which was the lowest rank of infantry officer at the time on Lexington Common, better known as Lexington Green, on April the 19th, and may have been in the front rank of the militia. Jonathan Harrington Jr. Jonathan Jr. and his brothers, Thomas, Moses, and John, rallied on April the 19th of 1775 within the first few minutes of fire. Jonathan Jr. was struck by fire within sight of his home on the northern end of the Battle Green. His home, called the Jonathan Harrington House, still stands today in Lexington, Massachusetts, on Harrington Road. Asahel Porter. On the morning of April the 19th, Asahel Porter and another farmer, Josiah, set out for Boston on horseback to sell their farm goods. Along the way, they ran into the British Army column moving west along the same road toward Concord. The mission of the British column was to find and destroy a weapons and armaments factory that was supplying the Sons of Liberty in the vicinity of Concord. The British were wary that the men would alert the rest of the Lexington militia that they were approaching. So the men were forced to stay with the British soldiers. Upon his release, Asahel Porter ran and he was shot. John Brown. Brown was only 24 years old when he was killed by British forces and was among the first to fall at Lexington Green. John's first cousins, James, Solomon, and Francis Brown, also responded to the call of arms on that day at Lexington Green. Samuel Hadley. Samuel Hadley was only 28 years old when he was killed by British forces. Samuel, a farmer, was married to Betty Jones in 1771, and he had 3 children, Lucy, Betty, and Samuel. All of his children were under the age of 5 when he died. Jonas Parker. On the morning of April the 19th, 1775, after the first fire, Jonas Parker, John Monroe, and Ebenezer Monroe Jr. fired their rifles at the regulars. His son, Jonas Jr., his first cousin, Thaddeus Parker, and his nephew, Ebenezer Parker, fought alongside him on the common. Caleb Harrington. During the Battle of Lexington, Caleb had gone into the meeting house for more gunpowder with Joshua Simons and Joseph Comey. All 3 found themselves in danger of being cut off from their company by the British. Caleb Harrington and Joseph Comey decided to make a run for it toward the Monroe House. He was only 23 years old when he was killed by British forces. Isaac Muzzy. Isaac Muzzy was around 31 years old when he was killed by the British forces. Isaac's great-grandfather, Benjamin Muzzy, bought a property in 1693, and in around 1709, he built the first public house, an ale house, a bar, that's what they call it, in Lexington. Benjamin Muzzy's son, John, later operated the tavern until it was run by his granddaughter, Ruth, and her husband, John Buckman. They owned the tavern on April the 19th of 1775. I believe that was the tavern where many of the militiamen stood and waited for the word to take the green. Those are the first 8. The first 8 in a long line of men and women who have made that ultimate sacrifice. When you think about the Star-Spangled Banner that is now our national anthem, I think it's important that we remember that inside Fort McHenry, as the British Navy was bombarding it from Baltimore Harbor, there were soldiers who were losing their lives to keep that flag flying so that Francis Scott Key could write those words, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, while the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave who are inside Fort McHenry, making sure that those broad stripes and bright stars never faltered, never failed, never struck the ground. There are many reasons for us to take a moment of reverence and remember and honor Memorial Day. Take your kids, if you can, to a national cemetery. But even if you can't, share with them the importance of this day. Because somewhere across the United States of America, there's an empty chair. There will always be this empty chair that family members will long for, the person who would normally be there. There will be a moment when a son or daughter shed a tear because their mother, their father, their grandfather, grandmom, aunt, uncle, cousin, maybe they're the ones going to the gardens of stone to share just a quiet, peaceful moment with them at their final duty station. But if anything, maybe just maybe, on this Memorial Day, you'll share these words that I'm about to share with you because I think that there is no other, well, 2 minutes, 10 sentences, 272 words that embodies what Memorial Day really is if you are an American. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our power, our poor power, to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have lived or died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. November the 19th, 1863, Abraham Lincoln, the Gettysburg Address. On this Memorial Day, honor it and show your increased devotion to those who have made the last full measure of devotion for you to enjoy your pool time, your barbecue grill, your sports entertainment, the very air that you breathe of liberty and freedom and individual sovereignty in these great United States of America. Steadfast and loyal. Honor Memorial Day.